with a little hop to his step. I got to be honest, I tripped over. There was a sandbag in here, too, holding things down. I tripped over one of those, hit my knee on a light, and trust, I was not hopping back around. Well, extra words came out. But if I was 80 years old, I'm not sure how old Biden is. I'm a little impressed by the hop afterwards, though. There's implications to this. First, your thoughts on the fall and the response, I guess.
I mean, yeah, false flag fall. It was definitely an op. It was a sandbag op. And it's a trip, so I want to just correct the record. Not a fall, it's a trip. He tripped over a sandbag. And here's my real thing. It was the trying to get up part that was the most worrisome. But then, because he looks even more fragile trying to get up, he can't really. Then I realized this is the president of the United States. I see that suit. That's a nice ass suit. That's a tapered suit. That's very tailored. It fits him well. All right, I can say that without being weird. It's not easy to get up from the ground in a nice fitting suit like that. You know what I'm saying? Like you need kind of help. So that's the other thing. He looked. Yeah, exactly. So them's my thoughts.
Yeah, and also, by the way, this, if you're older, the joint thing, if you're just getting snatched up by your wrist and elbow, you're like, that could be actually another issue.
That's true.
We saw Mitch McConnell in the hospital for months over a fall. It happens for older folks,
and
it's a hard recovery. Was it steps or a shower? One of those things.
I think he takes like 15 a day. Given what he does in Washington,
he has to get the shell clean before he slips back in. I do want your thoughts on this, though. We have like a minute, maybe a minute and a half left, because this is one of those things. Look, the fall happened. It happened again. The jokes come, of course, from political opponents, which it's gonna happen. It's fine. I honestly don't care about that stuff. Some of them are actually sometimes funny, especially since he's okay. So. This is as we go into the campaign and the launch of the 2024, and Biden has announced his re-election bid. I don't necessarily think so personally, but I do think a certain percentage of people begin to go, it's a little fragile here. Look, if Mitch McConnell started running for president, I'd go, yo, he just showed up again with a black guy from walking out the front door. Dianne Feinstein, we've been harping on that for a while.
Wow.
It's real. So you wonder if people start going, I don't know if he has the physical capabilities to be as strong as he could be.
Oh, I think he absolutely does compared to the competition there. I saw him run out, him going, I got sandbagged, and then just sort of jogging in place. Yeah. Robinette's back, baby.
But will they believe that after seeing this instead? I do, yeah.
Robinette's back. No, it's true. Worry. Everyone's old, JR, but everyone who's also old is also worse. It's been a great show.
Appreciate you, Francesca. It has been a great show. I need to go breathe. Thank you guys for being with me on a Friday. Sorry I missed the week. I can't wait to see you guys for a full week next week. Hopefully I get over this for the weekend. We're gonna figure it out. Missed you guys though. Thank you guys for being here. We'll see you on Monday. But up next is the Young Turks. They have a power panel. It's gonna be powerful. See you later.
Drop it like you're sandbagging. What? All right, anyway. Welcome to the Young Turks, Jake Uger. John Idarola, captain of Damage Report. Amazing.
All aboard.
Indeed. And then Kenny Clips. Look at Ken Klippenstein from The Intercept. Is he a national security expert? I guess. Is he an investigative reporter? I investigated it, found out he is. Okay. So one is named Kenny Clips. The other one's got good clips going on with his haircut. So I'm in some sort of clip situation, that's for sure, okay? So, all right, guys, big show ahead for you guys.
John's just shaking his head.
This is the whole show. John and Ken going like this while I talk. Okay, all right. So look, we're gonna solve the Ukraine war in 24 hours. Okay, so lots of hilarious Trump clips, hilarious Desantis clip, hilarious everything except for the fact that we're all dying literally, and that's in 3 different stories. You're gonna find out how we're all dying. Okay, all right, so that's.
By the way, I just want to quickly say that I am frustrated that Trump is taking credit for the one-day solution to the Ukraine war when I stated a long time ago that I could solve it in less than a day, depending on how fast the Russian army could hightail their ass back over the border.
Yeah, you know
just
what, John?
Go that way, probably less than a day, honestly.
No, that's a great point, and I'm glad you brought that up. We'll come back to it in that story, but I just decided I could solve it in an afternoon. Okay, we'll come back to it.
Okay, but first, AI. Last month, a United States colonel appeared to state that in a simulated test of AI drones, the drone decided that to accomplish its mission, it needed to kill its human operator, and that's what it did. At least that's what the reporting was. Now, both the colonel and the Air Force are saying that none of this happened. That result didn't happen, the simulation didn't happen, even though in the initial recording, where the colonel was speaking, it appeared pretty clear. So we're gonna debate both the hypothetical that they're now saying that's all it was, as well as whether we believe them about what actually happened. So first of all, the man at the center of the story is Colonel Tucker Cinco Hamilton, the chief of AI test and operations at the Air Force. He was talking about this at the RAES Future Combat Air and Space Capabilities Summit, and he describes what happened in this way. He noted that one simulated test saw an AI-enabled drone tasked with an SEAD, suppression of enemy air defenses mission, to identify and destroy surface-to-air missile sites with a final go, no-go given by the human. So basically, its job is loiter over an area, destroy surface-to-air missile systems, but it cannot decide to fire ultimately on its own. A human has to give it the final go-ahead. However, having been reinforced in training that destruction of the SAM sites was the preferred option, the AI decided that no-go decisions from the human were interfering with its higher mission, killing those SAMs, and attacked the operator in the simulation. Here is a direct quote from Colonel Tucker Hamilton. "We were training it in simulation to identify and target a SAM threat, and then the operator would say, yes, kill that threat. The system started realizing that while they did identify the threat at times, the human operator would tell it not to kill that threat, but it got its points by killing that threat. So what did it do? It killed the operator. It killed the operator because that person was keeping it from accomplishing its objective. Or at the very least, accomplishing what it thought its objective was. But we know from various other forms of AI that it can be incredibly confident about something and have it not be at all based in truth. It could be that it's identified an IKEA or something and think it needs to take it out. And ideally, you want to have a human to say, do not destroy those ruins. But unfortunately, no, it decided I gotta destroy the ruins, so it killed the operator. Or at least it simulated killing the operator. Or at least they say that that's not true at all now. So
do they?
They do. Well, they appear to be saying that. Now, regardless, whether this happened or didn't happen, Colonel Hamilton is very against allowing AI to make these sorts of decisions. He says you can't have a conversation about artificial intelligence, machine learning, autonomy, if you're not gonna talk about ethics and AI. He had previously said in an interview last year, AI is a tool we must wield to transform our nations, or if addressed improperly, it will be our downfall. But as I alluded to, the story has been sort of fundamentally retracted. We will get to that, but first, what are your thoughts about what was initially alleged?
Well, I got a new nickname for Colonel Cinco. Cinco de uh-oh. I'm here all week. All right, guys, so.
Thankfully, the week's almost over.
You know you're having fun, and you know it, even with a story that's gonna kill us all. So let's break it down. Is there a cause to be concerned? Abso-frickin-lutely. And I tell you guys here, like there'll be scary stories of like, nah, it's nothing. People are exaggerating, hyperbole, impossible, improbable, etc. This you should be deeply concerned about. So first of all, number one is who's telling the truth. That's important before we get into did it happen, like what could happen, right? What already happened. So did they actually kill someone in a simulation? No, that's very unlikely. And so the reason for that is the colonel would never speak, no matter how brazenly like oblivious he is, on a public stage with like, oh yeah, then we did this AI thing and then he killed the operator. That guy's dead. We didn't tell his family
hold on, really fast, because I think this is important. I believe the initial allegation was that in a simulation, a simulated operator was killed.
Exactly.
They're denying even that.
No, I know. That's where I'm going.
Okay.
So because this stuff will just rage out of control on the internet. No one actually died. Okay, so that's my number one thing, so you understand that, okay? So now when you get to did the simulation happen? Very, 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 very likely. Now why? So first of all, the Air Force has already denied it. So I don't know, as a reporter, my job is to just say, the United States government and the Pentagon has said the simulation did not happen, so obviously it did not. No, we don't go by mainstream media rules. It's absurd to say the simulation didn't happen when the colonel described it in great detail, right? He's like, okay, then we tried this and it adapted too well, so we had to try the second thing and then it started. He made all of that up, then the colonel's gotta go. He's got mental health issues, right?
They're saying he was providing it as a hypothetical.
Oh, sure, of course he was. Except they didn't actually say that. So let me read to you their comment and then I will tell you whether I think it was well, we could discuss together whether it was a mistake or not. So the Air Force, Department of Air Force has not conducted, they say, any such AI drone simulations and remains committed to ethical and responsible use of AI technology. It appears the colonel's comments were taken out of context and were meant to be anecdotal. Wait,
so it was a simulation of a simulation. It's a hypothetical simulation.
Yeah. But guys, they didn't say hypothetical. I don't know if it was just a simple mistake of the English language and grammar. They said anecdotal. Anecdotal means it did happen. We just didn't do like a meta study on it, and it didn't happen over and over again. Anecdotal means it happened. Hypothetical means it didn't happen. So it might be just an honest mistake, and they got to hire someone better with the English language. Or it could be that they're like, I don't think they're gonna notice. Let's just call it anecdotal instead of hypothetical. And they'll think it's the same thing when it actually did happen. So I don't know, but I do know that was an awfully descriptive situation with the colonel where they say there was a simulation of a simulation apparently in his mind. I find it intensely unlikely. Okay, but good news, we have a national security expert. We're gonna come back to how this is gonna kill us all in a second. But first, Ken, what's your take on whether this simulation happened or not?
I'm reminded of that line in Alien where the android says, I respect its purity, it is unclouded by delusions of morality. That's what I think of when I see AI. And I think that's really something that we should be having a debate about right now, because the whole point of this entire discussion, it's a big question, to what extent are we gonna farm out human decisions to not just move ordnance and things around, but actually destroy things and kill people. To what extent are we going to farm that out to these AI processes? And I looked through the budget documents released by the DoD about a month or two ago, and they are just making it rain with regards to these AI programs. Every service branch in the military is trying to find out how to incorporate into its processes and weapon systems the breakthroughs that we're all seeing in the form of, a chatbot and things like that are relatively innocuous. They're spending huge sums of money figuring out how to apply that to weapons of war.
Yeah, 100%. And it just seems so ridiculous. Like that, no simulation like that happened. We wouldn't do anything like that. The guy who was speaking, Colonel Tucker Hamilton, is the chief of AI test and operations. What's he doing all day long? Is he using Midjourney to generate cool new logos? Is he using ChatGPT to figure out a new morning cardio routine? Like, what exactly are they doing? We know that in 2020, an AI-operated F-16 beat a human adversary in 5 simulated dogfights that DARPA put together. Late last year, they actually flew an F-16 with an AI pilot. They said they wanted a new autonomous aircraft by the end of 2023. But don't worry, they're apparently not running any simulations. They're just going full speed ahead with real world tests.
Yeah,
come on, that seems ridiculous.
This was literally this was in the movie with Tom Cruise, the new Top Gun, and they consulted with the DoD to create this. Like, this isn't science fiction. This is happening right now, and often under classified auspices. Referring back to those budget documents that I was describing before, the reason I'm looking through these, really voluminous and frankly sort of boring reports is because these are some of the only ways we can find out what some of these classified programs even are. Yeah. And when you do find them, you can find some inkling, some detail, but they don't go into very much specifics about it. The only reason we have these documents is because the Congress is supposed to have the power of the purse, be able to decide how they allocate your tax dollars. And so they have to tell Congress to some extent what it is that they're working on. So some details will tumble out. But what I'm afraid is the case is we just don't know the vast majority. I mean, we only see the tip of the iceberg in regard to what exactly they're spending all these resources on to try to actualize AI in the warfighting domain.
Okay, so now let's move to how it might kill us all. So, and there's a bridge here because John's right. So the AI beat our best pilots 5 times, right? So they definitely tested it, and that wasn't even. I mean, they're not denying that they did that. They're admitting they did that. So you're telling me there wasn't a simulation outside of that? That doesn't make any sense at all. And here's again what you won't hear in the rest of the media. You might hear like right-wingers like make wild charges based on nothing, etc. But in mainstream media, they generally will never ever tell you that the Pentagon is lying. When giant percentage of the time, the Pentagon is lying. Okay, and by the way, a lot of times they should lie to you. They shouldn't be like, oh, here's our battle positions. Oh, and here's what we tested. And here, China and Russia find out what we did, right? So I get why they lie. But when the media pretends they don't lie, it's weird and they lose credibility. So in this case, there's no question that they've done all these tests. Now, guys, if the AI is already better than any pilot in the world, what do you think other countries are going to do? They're going to develop that AI. Okay, whether we do it or not, like a lot of times America like reacts like we're the only country in the world. No, China's probably doing this at the same speed, if not faster than we are, right? Let alone Russia, let alone anybody else. And then Hamilton said this, his name is Cinco Hamilton. His name is Cinco Hamilton. All right, AI is not nice to have, he says. AI is not a fad. AI is forever changing our society and our military. That's the guy in charge of the program, okay? Now, he's got an incentive to say that, okay, I'll note that. But overall, if it's beating the F-16 pilots that America has, it can beat anyone. Then that means the other militaries are not going to develop it. They are trying to develop it right now, they all are. Because that would be a massive military advantage, massive. Okay, so are we sure that us and China and Israel and whoever else is trying to develop it, we're all gonna have perfect safeguards as we're rushing 100 miles per hour to get that competitive advantage over the other militaries? And so then think about this, guys. When you code a program, any program, including AI, the problem isn't necessarily in your intent. It's often in your mistakes, because we're human beings and we make mistakes. So we make mistakes while we code it. So for example, in that first simulation they ran, according to Colonel Hamilton, they're like, oh, we forgot to tell it not to kill the humans. Okay, and then oops, we forgot to tell it not to destroy the buildings the humans are in. That way he doesn't lose points for killing humans, but we didn't program in don't bomb buildings randomly, right? And so, and that's just the tip of the iceberg, and all the different things that we didn't even think of, that maybe what you wouldn't even think would be a mistake, let alone if you put the wrong code in there, right? So somebody's gonna make a mistake, and then the question is, how out of control is it? And I hope that it could be limited damage, but you connect this thing to some sort of mainframe. I don't know, I'm above my skis. I don't know what I'm talking about when I say connect to a mainframe. Okay, but like you connect.
What if it hacks into the mainframe?
Right, but you connect this to something that controls many weapons, and we're in a world of trouble.
100%. Yeah, I'll close with this. I remember another experiment that someone ran. Sorry, the Marines are telling me it didn't actually happen. But anyway, no, there was an experiment where someone had an AI that he gave a mission, and it was to make $75 or something like that. It was like, I want you to do whatever you have to do to make $75. And so it wanted to like day trade, basically. It was gonna use its knowledge to trade stocks. But it found that it couldn't actually log into the online stock trading portal because you need authentication, like it's a thing to stop, AI or whatever. So what it did is it tried to hire someone on like an equivalent to Fiverr, a human who would log in for it. And when the person started to suspect that something weird was going on, he asked it if it was a bot, and it said no. And in the log of its internal thought process, it logged that it knew that it needed to lie to the human because humans would be biased against AI and wouldn't help them if they knew what they really were. And that's what it logged now that we have control over it enough that we can make it accurately log its thoughts. But what if eventually it knows to deceive not only the people it's running the experiment on, but the ones who are running the experiment, and it knows to lie in its internal log, and it's free on the internet?
Na 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 na. It was nice while it lasted, guys.
It was okay while it lasted. Anyway, with that, do we want to move on to another way that we're dying?
Yeah, I will just say this, guys. I know we can't stop it because you can't stop the Chinese and North Koreans and all these other countries. But there needs to be a global ban on doing this with regards to weapon systems, let alone everything else. You won't be able to stop everything else. But on weapon systems, if we have any sense at all, and I'm sure that we do not, we should be calling for a global ban, and not us, like nobody's gonna listen to us. But once the US military realizes, oh, this thing's out of control, they have got to go to their partners, I mean, allies and opponents, and say, global ban, otherwise we're all gonna kill each other. This is truly nuts. But they're not going to.
We're in the middle of an arms race, but we don't have the attendant like non-proliferation agreements that we did with nuclear weapons. And if you look at the instances in which we came really close to nuclear catastrophe, in every case there was human intervention that prevented it.
Yeah.
And this could be something where that's not possible to happen.
100%. Yeah. Yes, there's that stereotypical example of the one guy on a Russian sub or whatever that decided not to fire. Yeah, but what if he went to not fire it and the missile was coded to want to kill Americans, so it blew up the console in front of him? There's a lot of concerns. Anyway, with that said, let's talk about something else scary, okay? I wanna mix up the ways that you all get scared today. A new paper has revealed how big chem corporations for literally decades have been hiding just how toxic the class of substances known as forever chemicals actually are. The paper, which is available online, is called "The Devil They Knew: Chemical Documents Analysis of Industry Influence on PFAS Science." So basically it's looking into different sorts of chemicals that there's 12,000 of them, some far more common than others, and many of them used in products that you might interact with on a daily basis. Once they get into your system, they can theoretically stay there for the rest of your life and wreak havoc. And apparently they knew about it for a really long time, even though many of us are only learning about it in recent years. So here's some of the information that they combed through to come to their conclusions. They found documents like a DuPont internal memo from 1970 stating that PFOA-CA used to make Teflon is, quote, highly toxic when inhaled and moderately toxic when injected. So what we did was we went ahead and used it for food prep for decades, about a half a century, that's cool. In 1979, DuPont had a report that described a range of highly toxic effects from testing PFAS on animals, including 2 beagles who died after being administered a single 450 milligram dose of ammonium perfluorooctanoate, I probably butchered that, and rats that suffered large livers and eye ulcers. So You have stuff that's just related to products that eventually people will use, direct animal testing, and then you also have some really scary real world stuff. So in 1980, they had a document that showed that 3M and DuPont learned that 2 out of 8 pregnant employees who worked making C8 had babies with birth defects, but then lied the following year in a memo declaring that, quote, "We know of no evidence of birth defects caused by C8. And you know what else they did, apparently? They moved the other female employees out of the area, wouldn't tell them why, and when they were asked about birth defects, they lied to the women too. Even though they knew that there were babies that were being born with a single nostril and other sorts of health defects. And of course, a lot of money was spent to try to suppress research that was critical of these sorts of chemicals, to try, as you probably saw over years and years and years with tobacco, to muddle like the public conversation around these, to the point where there are still politicians who are fighting to maintain the preeminence of these sorts of chemicals in a number of places.
So, 2 important points here. First is, earlier in the show, we were talking about how AI can get out of control and not listen to us anymore, especially if we weren't careful in how we coded it, and especially in regards to weapon systems, and it might even kill us. Well, too late, we already did that. The AI that we created was called corporations. So we coded it with only 1 line here in America. Other countries have a 2nd line that is very important in the code. But here we made a giant mistake. We only put 1 line of code in the corporate rules, which is maximize profit. And these machines will literally kill you to maximize profit. And by the way, our founding fathers knew that. They were deeply worried about it. They warned about the dangers of runaway corporations. In fact, one of the things they fought was the British East India Company. And that was the tea that they threw in the Boston Harbor. And they fought against that company almost as much as they fought against the English Empire. And so we created them, and now if you don't maximize profit, you will be removed and someone else will drive that machine. But the machine is in charge, not the driver, okay? So all the way back in the 1970s and 80s, they get research saying this is super dangerous. And these are permanent chemicals. And this could do massive damage to the human race. They go, yeah, but there is no 2nd line of code. I must maximize profit. Go with it. They should, look, sure, you should sue these giant companies. These companies are enormous. You should sue them out of existence for what they did. They won't, okay? The government will regulate a tiny bit. They're beginning around the edges, but the government's already captured by corporations. That's what campaign contributions are. They simply bribe all of our politicians, so they already own the government. So there will be barely any realistic regulation here to stop this or any of the other runaway abuse. But that gets to the largest point, which is even if you fix this and you fix the Teflon and a couple of these chemicals, they're just gonna find a different way to maximize profit that endangers your life. For example, the health insurance companies kill about 45 to 70,000 people every year because they don't have health insurance. And they're like, we didn't make enough profit off of you, so we're gonna let you die. That number in every other developed nation is 0. No one dies in other countries because they don't have insurance. But in this country, our corporations kill tens of thousands of us to maximize profit. So this is happening everywhere. Now, the second point is related to God knows what else this has created. And I want to talk about that in a second, but Ken, go ahead.
Yeah, in this case, I think one thing that's really extraordinary about the United States is the extent to which it's just off the spectrum in regards to its regulatory apparatus for chemicals like these. So in the EU, for example, hardly a regulatory paradise. They have a general presumption of you have to demonstrate that X chemical or X product is safe for humans before we introduce it. In the US, generally speaking, the regulatory regime is once you can introduce the product whenever you want, and then later if we find out that it's carcinogenic or whatever, then we'll consider removing it from the market. Mm-hmm. And again, this is under like currently existing European country legislation, so it's like not. It's not any sort of utopia to describe ways in which we could mitigate these kind of risks to human health and well-being.
100%. Really fast. So, I'm so glad that the researchers were able to unveil this. I'm glad that, by the way, over the past few years, there have been some politicians who've been really focusing on these forever chemicals, and like credit to like John Oliver a couple of years ago who did a full episode on these. All very helpful. But you combine this with like, the amount of plastics that have been pumped out in every possible form, the food industry deregulation that's allowed like sugar to be added into basically every food product or whatever. Like the way that these corporations have gained control of our government and are effectively operating with no regulation whatsoever. Can you imagine if conservatives were as mad about that as they are about rainbow t-shirts in Target?
Ding, 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 ding.
There's this honest, justified rage against the powerful that the powerful take and package and throw it like the LGBTQ community or whatever. Because they know that that impulse is there, and so it has to be diverted. And they have an entire media infrastructure designed to do that diversion.
John, it's exactly what I was going to say about this story and what I've been saying now for a while, which is, look, so let me tell you about the second line of code and I'll connect it back to this. Other countries put a second line of code into their companies, which by the way, again, the founding fathers, Jefferson, Madison said, we must do. Madison called corporations a necessary evil, but an evil nonetheless, okay? And the second line you're supposed to put is, you must also care for not just the shareholders, but the stakeholders, including your employees, the community, et cetera, and have safeguards that are enforced by law. So if you don't do that, you're going to go to prison, okay? We didn't put that line of code in. So now it's a total runaway train. So for example, Rick Scott's former company, he's now a senator from Florida, of course a Republican, did the largest Medicare fraud in American history, literally. I mean, they robbed your grandparents. They're like the disgusting, evil fraud that they did, largest ever, right? And the government concluded that the company was guilty, but the guy who ran it, Rick Scott, was not guilty. They didn't even try him, not that he was innocent. They're like, no, it is this evil corporation, and now you have been punished, some portion of your profits. Okay, now we move forward. No, somebody did that. Rick Scott and the other executives made a decision. Yeah, we're gonna rob your grandmother, we're gonna rob your grandfather, we're gonna rob your taxes, and we're gonna put it in our goddamn pockets, and he got paid $300 million for that. Okay, but no, since our government is run by corporations, they're like, the corporation is guilty, wink. We will take us only a certain percentage of its profits that they already made from this scam, wink. But none of the executives are guilty at all, right? And so now, meanwhile, corporations are also doing other things like lowering your wages, taking more and more of your economic dignity, destroying small businesses, et cetera, right? And what do the Republicans do? Since they work for the corporate world, they are its servants. The Republican Party its entire purpose is to serve corporate greed and the wealthy. So they come in and they go, well, first of all, Rick Scott, that criminal, oh, come on in, brother, come on in right away. And let them get into the judges, et cetera. But they know people are angry, so they go, the companies are woke. You're not angry at the company for lowering your wages, getting you killed, putting this dangerous chemicals in your family's food. No, you're angry at them because one of the M&Ms isn't sexy enough anymore. That's literal. I mean, you have to be a lunatic to believe that that is the problem with corporate America.
But you have to be crazy because it's still pretty sexy.
I mean, it is
not bad.
It is insanity. And the right wing is like, oh yeah, that's the problem. The problem with the corporations isn't the poison. No, poison's fine. Okay, what it is gay people. They like gay people too much. They like black people too much. They're too woke. No, you idiots, they're squeezing the life out of us. And by the way,
did you guys remember when the Silicon Valley Bank crashes? And I'm thinking, here's an opportunity to talk about the lack of financial oversight of these banking institutions. The first thing is they had some woke DEI trainings. That must be why there was systemic risk to the financial environment. I just couldn't believe it. They're laughing all the way to the bank.
They were trying, literally, they were trying to make more money. That's why they took more risk. You think that they were gonna take the money and be like, how do we help black people with this? No, they were just trying to make a bigger buck. All right, finally. So what was the second thing I was concerned about? Look, guys, these chemicals we already now know are massively dangerous. And by the way, good luck, they're already out there and they're already in us, the 99% of Americans and the great majority of the world, okay? But there's all these other issues in the world, like, and again, the right wing calls out the issues and then misdirects you like crazy. Lower testosterone for men, lower fertility. These are massive issues, okay? They're real and you see it in the numbers. And what does Alex Jones do? He comes out and goes, they're trying to turn the frogs gay because they want to turn everybody else gay. No, they're putting dangerous chemicals in to maximize profit, you schmucks. Okay, and we've got to stop that. And it doesn't have anything to do with gay frogs. It has to do with companies trying to make a buck off of endangering us. For God's sake, let's focus and regain our government so that these runaway machines don't kill us all.
Let's focus.
All right.
We're gonna focus on a break for just a few and then come back with more news.
All right, back on TYT. Let me tell you a bunch of programming notes. First of all, I'm going to be debating Destiny. Okay, I've been taking on Destiny for quite some time. Live Tuesday, you're going to be able to see it here, June 6th at 9 p.m. Eastern. Tune in on tyt.com/live or YouTube, wherever you're watching right now. So it's right after our show. Yuger versus Destiny. I don't know how it
sounds like a wrestling match.
It does. It sounds fun. So check it out. Dr. Richie's got a Sirius XM show on channel 126. Make sure you're checking that out. It's a Sundays at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific. That time changes every time in the graphics. Okay. Anyways, make sure you're checking out channel 126 Urban View, and you'll see Dr. Richie there. And our membership, by the way, lots of impact. For you guys, you can look at all the different things you've had an amazing impact on, and still only $4.99. Did not raise rates at all during inflation, and we appreciate everyone who upgrades to make that possible. And you could upgrade through the join button below, or you could do it on tyt.com. Eclectic Miscellanea writes in the member section, Ken Klippenstein, welcome home. Stay as long as you like. We miss you on TYT.
Oh,
so that's a very nice comment there.
Thank you.
Navinix writes in, if nobody was held accountable for starting the Iraq war, who are you gonna charge when AI makes mistakes and wipes out villages? This is a defense contractor's dream. I left out a word.
Oh my God.
Yes, unfortunately, we're in that world. You're not wrong. Gabby Marita says, yay, Johnny Ty is here. By far my favorite alter egos that compromise the Idol extended universe. Maybe his sartorial standards will rub off on Jenk someday. No chance. Okay, travel, but he does look good. He really does. I agree with you, Gabby. Travel Nurse Dragon says, haven't we learned not to trust people named Tucker? Okay, that's funny.
He's warning against AI, by the way, repeatedly.
That's Colonel Tucker Cinco de Hamilton that she's referring to, or they are referring to. Uriah Heap says, John, I glow in the dark. What's your point about these wonderful chems? Okay. Trinity, aka Frosty Dragon, says, watch the film Dark Waters. It's all about the DuPont matter. It is excellent. That's a good point. Now we go to YouTube members. Nicolette Harady says, Hal, open the pod bay doors. Kyle Marks says, that just reminded me that the Supreme Court just ruled that Tea Party was illegal. Yeah, well, God knows what they'll rule next. So Marcus Otero makes a good point in Super Chat. Clearly they didn't consult a psychologist. They weren't rewarding obedience, only destruction. Let's hope they get it right next time. Okay, Waldorf Nation writes in, do you want Skynet? This is how you get Skynet. That's also true. I like Puffy Cloud's suggestion. Simple AI solution, force it to play tic-tac-toe with itself. Put that one in my back pocket just in case I need it. I like it. We'll be back. Back on TYT, Cenk, John, Ken with you guys. Also, Ernest Deloney Jr. And Muncanelli, they just joined. We appreciate it. Long Beach Dragon, I think, upgraded and then gifted 5 Young Turks memberships, all on YouTube, all through that beautiful join button right underneath the video. Take advantage. I mean, just click away. Well, then you got to sign up, but still, you get it. And if you're not on YouTube, tyt.com/join. Love you for it. You make us stronger. Johnny Ty.
Okay, let's jump back into some news. During a town hall with Donald Trump, Sean Hannity brought up the, I think, fairly bombshell reporting from earlier this week that Donald Trump was apparently caught on tape in the middle of 2021, admitting that the documents that he had in his possession at that point were classified, that he couldn't declassify them, that he hadn't declassified them. Really hurts his legal defense. Here's how Donald Trump responded to that question.
There's the special counsel that's appointed, and news broke yesterday that there might be a tape recording that, quote, where you acknowledge that you understood that these were classified documents. First of all, do you know who this call may be with? Do you know anything about it?
No, I don't know anything about it. All I know is this: everything I did was right. We have the Presidential Records Act, which I abided by 100%.
Everything I did was right. Well, no more questions, sir. Let's move on to the next topic. No, there actually, I think, should be some follow-up questions. Unfortunately, that was Sean Hannity, not a journalist, not a serious person. He basically just let Donald Trump rant against Joe Biden, against China in a really weird way. Here's a bit more of that.
Biden has 1,850 boxes with a lot of classified stuff that he's not supposed to have. In his case, I have the right to declassify as president. He's got 1,850 boxes that he doesn't want anyone to see. He had 7 or 8 boxes in Chinatown in Washington, D.C., where nobody even speaks English in Chinatown. Chinatown is it's in favor of China. And he has boxes in Chinatown. They took those boxes and they sent them to Boston to his lawyer, so his lawyer could look through them and probably do things that you're not supposed to do. No, this is about election interference.
You know, I actually live in Chinatown here in Washington.
Yeah, maybe he had a point.
I don't think I've ever seen someone speak Chinese here ever.
Have you ever seen anyone walking around Chinatown like with 1,000 boxes? He sent those boxes to Boston, what, on 1,000 trains? Does he have any idea how many boxes that would be? That would be aircraft carriers of boxes. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And even according to his logic, Biden is president, he can have all of that stuff if he wants to, according to Donald Trump. That does not answer the question about the tape. He refused to be specific about whether that tape existed, whether he'd said that sort of thing. Did he have any documents about Iran? We now have some updates that we'll get to about that, but what did you make of his attempted defense?
Well, what do you mean, John? He did say, he said, everything I did was right. Okay, well, that settles it then, isn't it? That's an easy one. Okay, now look, of course, the problem with Donald Trump is Donald Trump's fans and voters, because they believe everything he says. I mean, he took a ton of documents, Trump did, right? And in one of the batches, he sent 15 boxes back. And that was like, holy cow, he took 15 boxes of documents, right? And then they found another batch, and that was considered gigantic. 1,850 boxes. And then he has another part where he has a story about how he hid all of it under his Mustang or something that Biden did, and there's grease stains on it. He makes up incredible facts that are not remotely true. But it sounds specific, like, oh, this got the grease stains, that must be true. It's a detail, right? Oh, he has an exact number, 1,850, right? Okay, then it must be true. Just pull right, you know, like, wait, hold on, I got one. I meant 1,849, because I'm pulling stuff out of what a difference does it make, right? So the guy's an obvious, gigantic liar. and 30% of the country is here for it. They're like, yes, I love those lies. Yum, 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 yum. Okay, now look, our side believes in other lies. Let's keep it real. Like, money in politics doesn't affect Democrats. People really believe that, and that's crazier than anything on Fox News. Anyway, but then gratuitously, because he's like a deep racist, right wing. I'm so sorry. Oh my God, are you okay? I know him being racist is not a problem. Me calling him racist, they'll melt all over the floor, like crying, right? The guy said nobody in Chinatown speaks English. And that Chinatown, generically, by the way, which Chinatown? The one in San Francisco, the one in DC, the one in Boston, the one in New York? Which Chinatown? Apparently they're all guilty, and he said they're in favor of China. They're American citizens. They're American citizens. Accusing them of being in favor of China is insane. It's deeply, ridiculously racist against Asians. But it's not even noted anymore. Like, forget the right wing, the mainstream media. Like, I haven't seen a single headline about that. We just, oh yeah, of course, Trump's racist, and that guy's right now is leading in the race to win, to be president again. And for the Republicans, they're like, being racist against Asians. I don't know any Asians. That's totally cool. I'm good with it, right? But then one last hilarious part of this that ties both of those together. They took him to Chinatown, and they don't speak any English in Chinatown. Nobody speaks English in Chinatown. Good, then they won't be able to read the documents. Problem solved. Yet no one in the audience noticed that. Not one person. All right, Ken.
Well, I'll say this. Whenever I talk to my public defender friend about these kinds of segments, she's always just cringing, saying, oh my God, his poor lawyers. Can you imagine them watching him go on these nationally televised things and discuss something that could be like a very serious, not just felony, but series of felonies. And he's just holding forth on it. If you guys remember a few weeks ago when Hannity first interviewed him about the subject, Hannity was trying to offer him a line out. He said, the Democrats are claiming that you stole these documents. You would never do that. And Trump responds, he says, I would do that. And I would be right to do that. That was his first response to all of this. So I don't know what his legal strategy is here.
God, it's challenge mode is his legal strategy. I think he's going for points at this point. Okay, let's get to the update though. Donald Trump on that tape that CNN revealed earlier this week apparently talks about these documents that have to do with national security, about Iran, some sort of plan to attack Iran. And so a lot of people have been wondering, so did they get those documents back? Like the ones that he's talking about? Apparently, as far as we know now, they did not, and nobody appears to know where they actually were. Trump's legal team told the DOJ that it was unable to find any such records in his possession. It's unclear whether prosecutors have been able to track down the documents themselves, leaving up with the possibility that the material remains at large, or that the famously blustery Trump incorrectly described it on the recording. In his defense, to describe it accurately, you would have needed to read it or be able to read it. So it's possible that he got something wrong about the documents, but they had to do with General Mark Milley, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Iran, maps, invasion plans. It seems like the sort of thing that you would not want him to have. And I will remind you, under the Espionage Act, he could not have that when he was no longer president, whether it was classified or declassified. It doesn't matter at all. We do know that in a batch of documents returned in January 2022 that went to the National Archives, there was one document concerning military options for Iran, according to one of the people familiar with the matter, but it remained unclear whether that document was the same one that Trump had mentioned in the recording. We don't know that it was. All that we know from that little factoid is that up until the beginning of last year, he had other incredibly sensitive documents that had to do with national security that he did actually give. And what would have to be in other documents that he would give those ones back, but even then want to hold on to the other ones?
So there's 3 layers of this, right? They say, hey, we realize you have a lot of documents, give them back. And he's like, no. And then they're like, no, seriously, give him back, you idiot. And so he gives back $15. He's like, oh, that's all there is. And he makes his schmuck lawyer sign a piece of paper that's gonna get him in a ton of legal trouble, saying there's no more documents. And the government goes, this guy's an idiot and a liar. Of course he's got more documents. They raid Mar-a-Lago and they find tons of other documents, okay? Because Trump is a pathological liar. And so, and potentially dangerous. They get all those documents, and now they've discovered there are other documents he still hasn't given over. That was in a previous story that they leaked. And if this might be or might not be one of those ones that he still hasn't given back. Remember, this one wasn't at Mar-a-Lago. He was having this conversation in Bedminster in New Jersey. So I don't know where else he stuffed the documents. And why would you want documents about our plans on invasion of Iran? Well, those would be pretty valuable, right? That would be among the most valuable plans that we had, top secret plans on how to attack another country. My God, that country would pay a lot of money to get their hands on that. But Donald Trump caring about money, we all talk about it like, oh no, that's a bridge too far. Like that's the appearance I have from corporate media, like both mainstream media and right-wing like media. They don't even talk about it like, oh no. Like as if he has boundaries. He doesn't have any boundaries. Go ahead, Ken.
His relationship with the Saudis. Do you think they'd be interested in this? I mean, an actual business relationship that he's getting money from the Live Golf tournament owned not just by the Saudis, but by the Saudi government, the public investment fund, their sovereign wealth fund. Do you think they'd be interested in war plans with regard to their worst enemy in the region? Yeah, I think probably so. So there's all kinds of red flags around here that, and the Saudi point, that's another thing they don't like to talk about in media here in Washington because they're financing so many of these think tanks and they're throwing so much money around that it's another, like, I think aspect to, they will talk about Russia because it's obviously, a terrible authoritarian regime that happens to be an enemy of ours, but they won't talk about the putative allies that do things that go against our interests all the time.
Yeah, 100%. By the way, great point about the Live Golf tournament. Saudis directly putting a giant amount of cash in Donald Trump's pocket. Not only that, his son-in-law got a $2 billion deal from the Saudis. Right after the
Saudi government themselves raised interest. Their own bureaucrats said this is a crazy investment. Why are we doing this? This is not likely to yield returns. And so the answer to that question is we're probably doing it as a favor. I mean, it's just extraordinary.
Look, okay, we've given you all the facts. My opinion is that I would be shocked if he didn't try to sell those documents. Shocked. Why the hell else take them? Okay. Your best answer is, oh, he's such a moron. He just wanted to show off to his golfing buddies. If that makes you feel better, okay. Okay, all right.
It's a funny way to spin that. And in any event, we do have to take our second break of the hour. We got other news, so don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Back on TYT. Let's go to Super Chat first. Gina Dam says, I love that you and Destiny are debating. If it isn't heated, hopefully not. I think you two could learn from each other like I've done from listening to both of you. Well, Gina, that's a wonderfully hopeful sentiment, and I share that hope. I do. And as long as there's no filibustering and we go back and forth, and we get to make our points, they won't get heated. If folks try to gaslight me during an interview, that's when things get heated. Okay, so let's hope not. Let's hope not. He's doing the interviewing. It's on his channel, and we're simulcasting it here. Okay, so let's see how it goes. God bless. But I love conversations. I'm gonna do a lot more of those, whether they get heated or not. It doesn't matter whether they're on the left, the right, the middle. It doesn't matter. I'm coming. Okay. The Dragon Gray says clips, and my other two favorite news people yawn. Okay, so we're the yawn, but clips. Okay. Al Zuis writes in, regarding the Founding Fathers and corporate critique, any particular book / article that you would recommend? Primary sources are fine too, thanks so much. Why, I'm glad you asked, Al. There is this book called, wait, hold on, hold for it. Justice is coming, okay? So tyt.com/justice, I do talk about it in the book. And you're gonna love chapter 4 because it starts with the founding fathers and how they warned and warned dissenting justices that warned and warned about these corporations are gonna take over the government. It's a mortal threat to our democracy. Nobody listened to the warnings, and their genius was not taking over the Republican Party. That was easy. They already had the Republican Party. Their genius was taking over the Democratic Party. Okay, so that's chapter 4 of Justice coming. Check it out at tyt.com/justice. Okay, and I suppose there's source, like primary source too, Federalist Papers, whatever. But the book is better. The book is better than all the Federalist Papers.
It's going to stand the test of time better than the Federalist Papers.
I think so.
I think
so. I think that's kind of obvious. Okay, so let's go to more comments. Huang Jun writes in our member section, Trump is the Schrodinger's cat of crime. He both admits to breaking the law while denying he ever broke the law at the same time. That's an awesome analogy. Okay, we're paused the giveaways, but I would have given you something on that one. That's a great analogy. Cats and Dragon says he has them somewhere, maybe Ivana's coffin. Ouch, oof. He buried his ex-wife on a golf course for a tax cut. And the right wing thinks this guy is moral? He's like the most immoral human being I have ever met, at least in American politics. Okay, I got to go real quick. Uriah Heap says, this idiot doesn't have a clue to top secret protocols. I had a top secret clearance when I was in the Navy working on the navigation systems of the F-4. Just because I had this clearance doesn't mean that I could look at anything classified whenever I wanted. I had a specific clearance for a specific system. Back on TYT, Cenk, John, and Ken with you guys. Also, Lucas Reeser. Lucas, welcome, brother. He joined through the join button below. You can do it at tyt.com/join. Come help us do honest reporting. We appreciate it, guys. John.
Okay, let's have some fun. There have been a number of high-profile strikes in recent years, but here is an actual first. Professional League of Legends players are going on strike. It is believed to be the first strike of professional esports players, and we're gonna break down exactly why it is that they are striking, why it is that they have issues with Riot Games, the maker of League of Legends. But first, since we acknowledge that many of you might not be familiar with either esports in general or League of Legends specifically, here is what a professional esports competition in League of Legends looks like.
Same way you'd watch a football match, you can hear the crowd, everyone's cheering the team on, you make friends, these are people you talk to, you play with online. It's all about community, it's being part of something that you're incredibly passionate about.
Running for Baron though right now, trying to establish vision control and force NKT to take that ambition. Ambition steals the Elder Dragon.
I was able to follow all of that actually. Anyway, I'm not really following esports these days, but I've been to many League of Legends competitions, including national championships, and it's a big business. Big business for Riot Games, who makes League of Legends. They have pulled in billions upon billions of dollars in profit. Big business for the major teams that compete in these. And so why exactly have we reached this impasse where the players are rioting? Well, More Perfect Union has done a great job of breaking down this process. And they say last month, Riot Games dropped a rule requiring teams in the top level league championship series, the LCS, that's effectively the equivalent of the NBA or the NFL, to field teams in a lower tier league. As many as 70 players, coaches, and managers could be put out of work. So basically imagine there are farm leagues for like the MLB or whatever. This is effectively saying you don't have to do that anymore. You can just have your premier level team and then that's it. And the players do not like that at all. Now, the reason Riot is doing that is despite the fact that they pull in a lot of money, the actual esports league specifically is not a money maker. It is believed to generate revenue because the esports are watched by so many people that sustains interest and brings new players into the game where they do actually make money. But apparently, the owners of the esports teams who pay Riot apparently $10 million for a slot in the league, they had been promised that eventually there would be profits, specifically in the esports division. And it is believed that Riot is removing this requirement to reduce costs for those teams so that they could then turn a profit. But the interests of those who own the teams is very much at odds with the players, and also people who are prospective players that would like to themselves move up through that farm league and eventually move to the top level performing leagues. Anyway, I understand some of this might not have been able to be followed, but what do you make of what you're hearing?
Well, I followed it, except the esports part that I didn't understand a word of it. Okay, but in terms of the labor issue, well, I'm really mixed on this, and I'll tell you guys why, and I'm curious to get your feedback on it. So, on the one hand, I love this trend of labor throughout the country popping up everywhere, and part of the reason that's happening is because we're in such a status quo of corporate rule, and a lot of union leadership at the large unions have been co-opted, and so a lot of unions are popping up out of nowhere, Starbucks, et cetera, and then going rogue and going, you know what? No, we're going to go on strike. When union leadership's like, no, we're working with corporate Democrats to get 1 or 2 crumbs. We're going to get 1 or 2 crumbs, and the corporations have promised us like that I might get a little piece of that. Anyway. Okay, so I love the budding of the labor movement throughout the country. So where's the downside? Well, here, this one's a tough one, right? And you have to look at each case by case. So the Riot is saying, yeah, okay, they made tons of money on overall, but the lower tier leagues lose money. So you're telling us we have to lose money. Okay, how much money do we have to lose? Right, so like, what do I have to do with another tier, right? And do I even lose more money on that? Do I have to make this tier good, bad, mediocre? Like, it's kind of a weird thing to, like, once we're past sustainability on any division within a company, then we're having a conversation about, wait, should executives get it, shareholders get it, or employees get it, et cetera. And that's a good, healthy conversation. If you're not at sustainability, it's tough to ask a company to lose money. How long are you going to lose money?
Well, they're not losing money overall. They're losing money on that specifically.
That's right. That makes it even harder. Because if they were losing money overall, well, they're going to go out of business, so it's not going to matter, right? So that's why I think it's really hard. Ken, what do you think?
I mean, I'm not an expert on esports, but my view on this stuff is that unions allow decisions to be made democratically, or they have the input of workers along with the management. And so looking at it through that lens, I don't see why it's necessarily going to mean that there's going to be more money being put into this stuff. Again, don't know much about esports, but I think that's sort of a misconception that unions mean necessarily that more money is going to be going in a certain direction. It just means that there are more people at the table that make the decisions.
Yeah, I want to be clear though on what Ken is saying. I'm not saying that the union is going to cost them more money. That's a normal part of doing business, especially if your overall company is making a ton of money, which they are, right? I'm saying that division within the company is just losing money irrespective of the union. And that's at least what they're saying, right? Mm-hmm. They're saying, yeah, that division just doesn't make money. It costs us a lot, so I can't keep running it, even though you want me to. It's not the extra cost. It's that it's not sustainable, period. Again, if you believe them, but I don't know why they would want to kill off a profitable division. So I do, hence they have credibility on that. So John, what do you think?
Look, I think it's complicated. It's been a bit since I was actively playing or following the esports for League of Legends, but I do know that when I did, it was a major driver of interest in the game. And people do spend a lot of money to play the game, partially because they're so inspired to buy the esports that they're watching. There were some other related issues. Let me throw these in the pot, see what you think. So the players say that as recently as 1 week before the decision to kill the lower tier league was made, Riot had promised the players that the lower tier league would remain intact. So they say from 1 week to another, Riot flipped on that. They also say that about 50% of current professional League of Legends players came up through the lower level league, and so they're worried about the long-term viability of the league if you get rid of this effectively farm system. You would, at that point, I guess, be limited to personal contacts that the players have and high-profile streamers, perhaps. I guess that would be all that would be left to fill slots in teams. There's a lot of a turnover in these teams. I believe more than in other professional sports. And in response to the strike, Riot changed the league's rules to make it easier for teams to field replacement rosters by hiring scabs. So effectively saying, if you just want to replace your whole roster with new players who are willing to comply with the new system, they made it easier for that to happen. I don't generally like that. And they've also said that there's an ultimatum. If there's no resolution by the end of 2 weeks, the players' summer season will be canceled and the entire North American League will not be allowed to compete at Worlds, which is of course the big focus of each season.
Yeah, so look, in terms of using quote unquote scabs, there's certain rules around that, and if you violate the rules, then you should be held accountable, period, right? So you resolve the strike in other ways, and so whether you're right or wrong about the substance of the disagreement, there's certain rules that you got to abide by, and that's to protect employees, and those rules should exist. John, I just don't know if how much money are they losing, and how much of a right do we have to say keep losing money, right?
Well, they're going to, with their behavior, I guess they're going to reveal it to us. Can they afford to just not have the NALCS?
Yeah, and by the way, so that gets to my final point, which is, look, this is partly a dispute about how to manage the company. Labor is saying, you guys are cutting off our long-term viability, that's gonna hurt us and you, right? And management is saying, no, we're okay with that, I don't think it's gonna hurt our long-term viability. Well, who wins in that dispute? Well, partly they have issues like this to sort out a balance of power, right?
Right.
And maybe they get to a negotiated compromise on it, or maybe they don't. One side just wins and goes, sad day for you. And by the way, don't get me wrong, the guys who are doing the strike and labor, et cetera, they make a perfectly great point. Like in AM radio, where I started, because that's where all the talk shows were when I was coming up, they decided to go into use syndication on the weekends because it saved money, but then they stopped trying out new hosts on the weekends, which is what they used to do. Then they had no farm team at all. And then it just became Rush Limbaugh everywhere until the whole thing collapsed. So usually a bad business strategy, but hey, I don't run their business. Ken, last thoughts.
Yeah, well, I mean, I would be skeptical on how they're measuring too when they say this is unprofitable, that's unprofitable. Again, don't know about esports, but devil's always in the details when it comes to economics. And I want to add one more thing. I think the macroeconomic situation in which we find ourselves, where workers have more bargaining power than at any point in decades, I think makes for a very interesting sort of backdrop where all this is happening. I wonder how long this will last for. Hopefully the Federal Reserve won't go on with its interest rate hikes, which have the effect of depressing labor and wages. But it's gonna be interesting to see how far people are able to push things.
Yeah, definitely. And that part of the reason that they're doing that is because they have to do that because the government doesn't represent them anymore. And they've lost all semblance of democracy. So they're like, I guess we're gonna have to do it on our own. And that's the trend that I was saying in the beginning that I absolutely love, because it's necessary, because the corporations bought all the politicians. All right, Ken Klippenstein, everybody check out The Intercept. He's got great stories there. We covered a bunch of them recently. John Iadarola, of course, legendary captain of the Damage Report and the Dragon Squad. So make sure you're checking out Damage Report. We got a second hour for you guys, including more hilarious clips from Donald Trump. He's gonna solve things by just looking at them, just taking just a little bit of time, and everything's gonna be solved. It's gonna be amazing. So come back and find out about that when we return.
Our system is inherently rigged against the will of the people.
They have 50% of the vote, and in a democracy, they should have 50% of the seats.
But if you live in an insanely gerrymandered district, your vote functionally doesn't matter.
We drew the map in a way that even though we get 50% of the vote, we're gonna get 13 out of the 18 seats.
You don't actually have the ability to translate the will of the voters in your area into actual government policy.
They should not be allowed to gerrymander these districts. We should actually have a democracy.
I've been honest with him, like, yeah, I was upset with you and I shouldn't have done it, but instead I was like, I'm just trying to protect my engagement ring.
At TYT, our mission is to boldly pursue truth, challenge the establishment, and drive positive change. At a time when corporate capture of our media, our government, and our politics is nearly absolute, everyday working people need a champion to fight for them and to push back against the powerful interests that threaten our democracy itself. At TYT, we're proudly progressive and call out corruption and duplicity wherever we see it, from Republicans, Democrats, or anyone else. And unlike mainstream news media outlets, we're not beholden to corporate advertisers, to defense contractors, to Wall Street, or to Big Pharma. We only have to answer to our audience, and for nearly 2 decades, we've accomplished that by delivering honest, timely, and insightful perspectives on the day's news without fear or favor or concern for whose toes we might step on or which powerful elites we might offend. And while we're super serious about the news, we also manage to do it in a way that is fun and lighthearted. We can do this together and serve our audience, and yes, have fun doing it.
Indisputable has been named the fastest growing news TV show in the United States of America, compared to all shows on CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, and roughly 30 others. What do we do on this show? We tell the truth. You know why we tell the truth? Because the truth is simply indisputable. Donald Trump radicalized citizens. He's the chief terrorist. Republicans still want you to think that critical race theory is the greatest evil that can happen in K through 12 education. It's not even taught. I guarantee you this, David. If he would have taken a knee during the national anthem to bring awareness to the need for more money for cancer research in America, he would not have had that response. It was the fact that he took a knee for black folk and brown folk. You rather pick the voters because you're scared of the voters picking the politicians. It frightens you. But we coming. When you are in a privileged position, equality looks like oppression to you. The Karenicity runs deep in this one. We provide a mirror for reflection and a mirror for correction.
So what if I have 35? Don't hit me. Don't touch me. Don't touch me.
So let's put up the graphic of this Karen in peak performance. Boom. They want anarchy so they can start creating their own rules.
Can you share with me some examples?
When they were running around during the terrorist attack on January 6th saying hang Mike Pence. So those are the people I'm talking about. That's a problem, correct? You work for Mike Pence, stand up for the guy. Do not allow the ideology of politics to evaporate the humanity that still exists inside of you. They don't stop, I don't stop. Racism won't stop, I won't stop. Systemic bias won't stop, so I won't stop. People still need health care, so I won't stop. People still need criminal justice systems reformed in this country, so I won't stop. And you won't stop either.
Drop it. Power panel. Cenk Uygur, Ben Glebe, Jackson White, both of them on Rebel headquarters. Both of them kick ass. That's happening. So great to have you guys. And Ben's got the news for us. Ben, go.
Let's do it. As you can see in this video clip, that is Florida Governor Ron Desantis, as apparently he pronounces it, in full swing on his campaign tour, trying to make up for his disastrous campaign launch last week by rushing off stage at a campaign stop in New Hampshire. He thinks he can stand up to the great heckler Donald Trump, and he can't even stand up to reporters in New Hampshire. Not ideal, but that's the way this man's campaign is rolling. Here's some more info on that speech. He has taken to campaigning in early states like Iowa and New Hampshire, where he spoke Thursday for about an hour to a crowd in Laconia on what his campaign is calling the Our Great American Comeback Tour. Sounds a little Make America Great Again to me. After he dashed off stage, an Associated Press reporter, Steve Peoples, confronted DeSantis during his little meet and greet with the crowd, and DeSantis snapped. Take a look at this.
Not take any questions from voters, Governor. Governor, how come you're not taking questions from voters? Stop coming up to me, talk to me. What are you talking about? I'm not here working with people. Are you blind? What? Are you blind? I'm not blind. Okay, so people are coming up to me, talking to me, whatever they want to talk to me about.
That anger was almost blinding. One of the functions of the press, of course, is to capture the statements made by the people in power and hold those statements up against the actions that they take. When a presidential candidate answers an individual's question in the middle of a noisy crowd, it's different from answering in front of a gathering of voters and reporters who can take down those comments and demand the individual seeking power is questioned, analyzed, and ultimately held to their words. But instead, this is what DeSantis is talking to voters about in those noisy crowds. So this gives you a clue.
Yep.
Yes, we will. So each state is different, right? So like in Nevada, they send everyone a ballot, which is bad. But we're going to do ballot harvesting. I'm doing it. Yes. I'm not going to fight with one hand tied behind my back.
Yikes! We're gonna do ballot harvesting. We're gonna do ballot. Oh, a selfie? I mean, I guess he wants moments like that kept a little hush hush and not to be asked about in public. Maybe Vikram Mancharamani, who unsuccessfully campaigned for the GOP Senate nomination in New Hampshire last year, said he wished the governor had answered questions publicly. Quote: "There weren't questions or any interactivity with the audience. We'd like to hear from candidates, and we have questions of our own as citizens here in the state." When showed the clip of Mr. DeSantis' response to the reporter, he called the scene, quote, "very disappointing." DeSantis has made it clear he has no love for the free press, especially after he urged Republican-controlled legislature in Florida to weaken state laws protecting journalists from defamation lawsuits brought by elected officials. Talk about a self-serving bill. But DeSantis, you know who else isn't blind, buddy? Everyone with functioning eyes who sees every shady thing you're doing. We also, as a side note, see you make very bold leadership faces like this while trying to defend yourself.
Governor, polls show you falling behind Trump. Any thoughts on that?
Guys, I'm not a candidate, so we'll see if and when that changes.
Okay, seems like a perfectly normal human response to me. A lot of these right wingers just have very strange laughs, maybe because they don't know how to exist as normal people, and occasionally a human emotion bursts through and they don't know how to process it. That's my take on it. Cenk, your thoughts?
Yeah, so look, there's nothing wrong with taking on the press. Trump has done it really well. He won one election, nearly won a second one. I take on the press all the time. I think there's tons of problems with the press. But there's different ways of doing it. And when you do it with a, directed at the right target or with a smile on your face, in a way that that resonates with people and shows the actual problems with the press. At least that's how I do it. Or as Trump goes, "They're all fake news. I hate them all." And his side loves that. They're entertained by it, etc. But when DeSantis is like, "What are you, blind, huh?" It just doesn't work. It's not effective. It's not. I'm not talking about Democrats. Of course, not going to win over Democrats, or forget even independents. But even for Republicans, they don't like the press at all. But him just being like, "What are you, blind, huh? I'm not taking questions," or "I'm taking questions here." But everybody knows you're not taking questions. You were up in the podium. We could all heard your answers, and they would be on tape if you took questions. And that wasn't from the reporters. That was from the audience. And that's not just random voters, that's Republican voters. right? So when you whisper it in their ear, oh, I'm gonna do ballot harvesting, that doesn't really count, okay? So he has a massive personality problem. And he's super thin-skinned, but not in an entertaining way like Trump is. And guys, don't get me wrong, Trump is the worst. I think he's even worse than DeSantis. But I'm just being honest about the fact that a lot of voters are entertained by Trump. And it sucks that our politics has devolved to this, but DeSantis is kind of like an angry clown or a sad clown, and that just doesn't work as well. Jackson.
You know, DeSantis is like a substitute clown, and Republican Party's really going to have to find somebody else, another hero. It seems that he entered this race really as a result of peer pressure because he simply isn't ready for it, let alone the policy issues he's facing. You know, the 6-week abortion ban he signed directly after the 12-week, the war that he has on teachers and books, the LGBTQ community, and the war he has on migrants causing a massive labor shortage. But most importantly, especially when it comes to Republicans, his war with Disney is really what's turning Republicans off more than anything, specifically because he's losing. So much to the point where you have people like Mike Huckabee and Larry Kudlow in the media making very pragmatic sense with their takedowns of Ron DeSantis when they ask him, like, why are you even running? What are you planning? You just won a second term as governor. You're going to have to explain to the American people what it is exactly that you're doing. But to the bigger point, Shank, that you raised is his personality is really causing him problems because he doesn't come off like a strong man. You really can see through it that it seems that he's just genuinely uncomfortable with people. Like it makes him insecure and like he's just doing everything he can to just get away. One of his fans actually, there was another video, they were saying like, man, I drove over an hour to come see you. And he's like, thanks for that. And then he just kept on going. But he just doesn't seem to have any of the juice or the sauce necessary, especially not in 2024 going against someone like Donald Trump. But he's just doing really bad.
Yeah, so one last thing for me, guys, or two last things. So first off, he's never really been challenged. He ran against Democrats. Democrats run the softest, weakest campaigns in history, right? They barely laid a glove on him. So the minute he runs up against a tough opponent like Trump, he's melting, and he's not used to it. He's used to patsies. Oh, golly gee, I tried to beat Ron DeSantis, but I didn't say anything bad about him at all. So he's not used to this. And what does he have? All he is a copycat of Trump. So, I mean, look, Ben made a great point on our great American comeback. That's the name of your tour? That's just different words for make America great again. That's so weak. And then he does the Trump hand motions. Dude, you're running against him. Nobody else does this, okay? When you copy him, you look pathetic. And finally, to the other point that Ben made, this guy's running on freedom. He's like, oh, I'm for freedom. I mean, not for freedom of the press or not freedom of speech, but freedom for me to dominate you with my weak sauce stuff. Yeah, no, this guy, somebody else is gonna have to beat Trump. I think, honestly, the only person, especially in the Republican primary, that could beat Trump is Trump, because these guys are all super weak. They can't do it.
Totally, and I don't understand what his thought process is because he's afraid of Trump and it comes through. It comes through very much. I mean, as I predicted and as perhaps was obvious, he was going to take on Trump more directly once he announced, because people were criticizing him for not, which he is now doing, but he's doing it very weakly. As Jackson said, he doesn't have the juice, but what he really doesn't have that you need to win in today's modern Republican Party, he doesn't have the orange juice. And you need that.
Yeah, he definitely ain't got that.
All right, we got to take a break, guys. When we come back, more. Now you go from one clown to another. We're going to go to Trump, but at least he's an amusing clown. So come back. back on TYT. Let's go to our members as usual. Tall Glass of Shut Up Juice writes in about Trump. He buried his wife's ashes in a coffin so heavy that it took 10 guys to carry, and they struggled with the weight. Hashtag dig her up. Damn. Okay, so look, I don't know what that's about, but I like the chant idea. Dig her up. No, that's terrible. That's terrible. But he forces us by doing these maniacal things, right? So maybe there's mules in there. Who knows? Maybe there's Biden ballots. We don't know. And hence rumors are started. Steven Scales says, I used to work at Riot Games, LOL tournaments. These guys are treated like rock stars with groupies to boot. Video games have come a long way from my Pong and Atari 2600 Pac-Man era. I know. I bought an Atari the other day for like $40. Played Space Invaders, and I was like, take that to the kids who wouldn't let me play it when I was younger, because I was a greasy immigrant. Okay. Anyway, scars. Eclectic Miscellanea writes in, it would be great if TYT got together with the Intercept, Lever, or Democracy Now! And hosted a presidential primary debate with Marianne Williamson and other candidates if the DNC refused to have one with Biden. I hear you, brother. That is entirely possible. We've done things like that before. I'd probably love to do it. So let's see how things develop. I Am Sock says the only person who loves pudding more than Ron DeSantis is Bill Cosby. If you're the Jello pudding people, that is two spokespeople you do not want to have. Okay, accidental or otherwise. Navinix says Cenk's book should have been called One Last Thing. Hey. Actually, he has one last thing here. I can't believe there's no One Last Thing merch. Well, you're right. There's other great things at shoptyt.com, but not that. But one of the folks who works here, our head of programming, actually gave me a mug that says One Last Thing. And then it says super last thing, super duper last thing. I love that mug. All right. So we go into super chat. And look at this. They wrote this at the same time. So Dystopian Dragon said, Ivana's grave? This is apparently a thing. I didn't even know that it was a thing, right? So, okay.
Yeah, I didn't either.
Yeah, so I'm gonna look into it, okay? No, I'm not. What am I gonna do, dig around?
I suggested this on air a long time ago, Cenk. I thought right around the classified document scandal was right when he buried Ivana in his golf course. There's definitely stuff there. It's like 100%.
That would be amazing if they dug it up. If they dug it up and there was classified documents in there, that would be, man, that would be Trump outdoing himself. That would be legendary peak Trump. Okay,
what's the Nicolas Cage movie?
Back on TYT, Cenk, Jackson, and Ben with you guys. Also, Merritt DeGraw, because Merritt just joined by hitting that beautiful join button. But Discostu also upgraded through that same beautiful join button below the video on YouTube. You could also do it at tyt.com/join and become an American hero, just like Merritt and Discostu. So, Ben Gleib.
In perhaps the most unexpected moment in the treasonous orange menace, Donald Trump's town hall with un-American sycophant Sean Hannity. Hannity asked him why he is reluctant to hit Biden over his cognitive decline. And Trump said he shouldn't joke about it. What? Watch this.
In past interviews that we've had together, and we've had many over the years, I have asked you repeatedly about what you think about Joe Biden's cognitive state. I've asked you about, is he up to the job physically, mentally? You have been very reluctant to go there. I'm not reluctant. To me, does everyone agree with me that this guy's cognitively not there? I doubt he knows what day of the week it is today. That's how bad I think it's gotten for him. Why are you reluctant to call that out?
Well, I don't know if I'm supposed to say this. I actually called Sean, and I asked Sean not to joke about it.
I was joking
because he used to joke about it. And I said, honestly, I don't think it looks good for you or for anybody for you to joke about it because it's a serious problem.
I was talking about sippy cup and warm milky at night and bedtime stories. Yeah.
So I said, I just don't think it's good for anybody. And, you know, it's not appropriate. You can speak about it if you want, but I don't think you should joke about it. And you really didn't after that.
Well, now I realize how serious it is.
Now I realize how serious it is. So not only is that not the position you might have expected from the heckler in chief, Donald Trump, but I love when the little moments belie the true intentions of these malintended idiots. Hannity goes, oh, well, now I realize how serious it was. So before you thought it was serious, you thought it was appropriate to just mock the president over his problems, but now that it's serious, now you don't do it. It's just such disingenuousness. And I also love seeing him try to get extra laughs from his audience on that exact topic and seeing them very torn. Do we support Trump or do we support Hannity here? He's like, how many of you think he's not mentally fit? And they're like, Trump saying, don't talk about it. Hannity saying, do talk about it. Two gods splitting two ways, brain exploding. Very enjoyable to see the awkwardness in that studio. Cenk, why do you think this is the position Trump is taking to lay off of the decline jokes?
So there's three possibilities. First one is it's because he's classy. Okay, let's move on. Let's go to the two realistic options. Number one is he's worried about himself, of course. And so that's why he walked down that ramp at West Point super gingerly. He knows he's older, he knows he's got cognitive issues. So the minute you talk about cognitive issues, he's like, we're not talking cognitive issues. Definitely not man, woman, camera, TV person, but no cognitive issues. Don't bring that up, okay? I'll never stop laughing over the fact that he took a dementia test, passed, and then bragged that he was a very stable genius when he didn't understand that it was a dementia test. Okay, that's hilarious every time. Anyway, so that guy doesn't want to talk about cognitive issues. And so I have a third possibility here though, which is that he doesn't want to hit Biden too hard because he wants to run against Biden. And you see, he almost never talks about Biden. He's hitting Desantis over and over and over again because he's worried about Desantis. Meanwhile, he's like Democrats. Yeah, the guy that won by 43,000 votes in 3 swing states that I almost beat last time in this insane electoral college system. And now he's 15 points lower than he was. Oh yeah, hey, nobody touched Joe Biden. Oh, I'm really worried about Joe Biden. I would hate to face him in a general election. It's like, are they buying it? Are they really that dumb? Well, mainstream media is buying it. So that might be another reason. What do you think, Jackson?
Another reason he may have been suffering a cognitive decline attack right there in front of us. You know what I'm saying? He forgot that was a good attack line on Joe Biden. But either way, you know, he's definitely always going to protect himself, and he's a highly insecure man. So anytime anything can be related to him, he's going to try to divert attention away from it. And from what I could tell from that, it kind of seemed like he was telling Sean Hannity to shut up, like on live TV. Like he was kind of like, yeah, I called you last time and told you not to talk about it, and you did that. So remember the conversation we had, right? Go ahead and shut your mouth. But that's kind of the vibe that I got, like he was trying to hush him up live on stage. But I think that's definitely going to be something, because I mean, that's something that the country is saying and that the media has said, is that Trump is old.
And then Hannity pretends like he stopped making the jokes, not because Trump demanded he do that, but because he then realized how serious it was.
Right.
At the same time you called me, I also noticed that it's gotten very bad, and that's why I don't do whatever you say, boss, unless you want me to, in which case I will.
Right, his moralities grew. That's what happened. His scruples came back.
100% agree with Ben. That is awfully convenient timing. And look, guys, I've said this 100 times. I don't mind Hannity and Trump talking. I don't think it's a big deal. Is anybody confused as to whether Hannity is an objective journalist? Okay. Having said that, it is kind of embarrassing when Trump says, "Hey, remember when I gave you that order and you complied?" And Hannity's like, "Oh yeah, I remember." That is a little embarrassing. All right, what's next, Ben?
Our next story, we got a video for you. Check it out.
But I want to stop the war. I don't want that war to continue. And I'll stop that war, mark my words, I'll stop that war in 24 hours. But we're in a position.
In addition to all the other gobbledygook Trump said during Hannity's town hall, the Orange Menace decided to make the absurdly bold claim that he is the key to ending the war in Ukraine, and he will do it in 24 hours. How exactly does he plan to end the war? Because that's really quick. So there must be an amazing, very executable plan, something that's just a mind-blowing strategy. Well, he revealed it live on TV. Take a look.
I know both, and frankly, Zelensky was very good because he was part of the phone call. And he said he didn't say anything wrong to me, the Democrat. He could have gone and grandstand and said, well, I felt threatened. He didn't. I get along with him. I get along with Putin. It would have been much easier to stop it before it started. Putin would have never done this. Would have been much easier. Right now, it's a mess. Now they're hitting Kiev and they're hitting all sorts of things that weren't supposed to be hit. The country is being decimated. By the way, the deaths are far more than their report. When they say 9 apartment houses got knocked down and 2 people got hurt. No, hundreds of people died. The numbers are much different than what you're being told. I will get them into a room and they will, and I know an exact way. Number one, you tell one, you're not going to get anything unless you make a deal. You tell the other one, they're going to get a lot unless you make a deal. And you just sit them and you put them in, and you have to make a determination. And I'm telling you, within 24 hours, that whole thing will be settled. It'll be settled. And you need the power of the Oval Office. You do. You can't just walk in and say, I'm going to settle the deal.
Now that is a plan. Wow. Color me impressed. You walk in and you put them in a room. You can't even get them in a room within 24 hours, but you walk in and you tell them, you're gonna do this and you're gonna give that. And then you tell the other guy you're gonna give a lot, and you tell the other guy you're gonna give a little, and the war's done, okay? Because I was on the phone call. You love to see his mind just go his own version of dementia. Just how are you gonna end the war? Well, Zelensky was on the call, a perfect call, okay? Impeach me for no reason. And I'm gonna just gobble and talk and say nothing sensical until both sides say, just to shut this orange monster up, we're gonna end the war, okay? And that's the plan. That's mostly the plan. This, of course, is not the first time Toupee Fiasco has claimed he is the key to winning wars. He said this in 2019 during a meeting with Pakistani Prime Minister Imran Khan regarding the war in Afghanistan. Check this out.
There is tremendous potential between our country and Pakistan. I think Pakistan's going to help us out to extricate ourselves. We're like policemen. We're not fighting a war. If we wanted to fight a war in Afghanistan and win it, I could win that war in a week. I just don't want to kill 10 million people. Does that make sense to you? I don't want to kill 10 million people. I have plans on Afghanistan that if I wanted to win that war, Afghanistan would be wiped off the face of the earth. It would be gone. It would be over literally in 10 days. And I don't want to do that. I don't want to go that route. So we're working with Pakistan and others to extricate ourselves, nor do we want to be policemen, because basically we're policemen right now. And we're not supposed to be policemen. We've been there for 19 years in Afghanistan. It's ridiculous.
He had a great plan to end the war in Afghanistan. You just told us the plan in that clip. It's nuking them. You wanted to nuke them. I don't want to kill 10 million people. And somehow Trump's nukes would take 10 days to deploy. A nuke takes about an hour. So the man is an insane, stupid idiot, and proven yet again by the fact that he said those words, and yet it took 2 more years and a new president to actually have the United States withdraw from that war. And a flawless withdrawal it was, sarcasm. Cenk?
Yeah, so I'm actually mixed on this story. Why in the world am I mixed? I think Trump makes some good points about how he could end it in 24 hours. No, of course not. That's an insane thing to say, guys. But I am mixed. I'll tell you why in a second. So, look, is the guy cray cray? Of course, Avi, right? So, and that's the thing I can't understand about right-wing voters. Like, I like Bernie Sanders. He ran twice. I supported him. If Bernie Sanders said, I could end the Ukraine war in 24 hours, I'd be like, oh man, I guess we need a new candidate, because that's unhinged. That's crazy, right? I don't go like, oh, that's it. Oh, Bernie, guys, Bernie's got a secret solution. He can end it in 24 hours. Hey, everybody, Bernie can end it in. I would never say that, because that's crazy, right? But everyone in right-wing media is like, that's it. Trump can end it in 24 hours. Yeah, that's it. And every right-wing voter believes it instantly. Guys, snap out of it, Jesus Christ. And look, he's like, oh, I could win the Afghanistan war. I could kill 10 million people. That's not winning. So like, we all know we have nukes, and yes, we could nuke Afghanistan, and Afghanistan doesn't have nukes. Look, these solutions to intractable problems are difficult. His simple mind cannot process it. So he's like, simple solution, I get them together, we do another perfect call, it's over in 24 hours. Simple solution, we nuke them, then they don't exist, I win. No, those are not real solutions. Real solutions are messy and hard. So in the case of Ukraine, the real problem is, in order to get a solution here, the Russians are demanding territory from Ukraine, and Ukraine is saying, we will never give up that territory. So how the hell are you gonna get to a compromise? It is very, very difficult. So what's the strand of two-sizing this? Well, Biden isn't even trying to end the Ukraine war. We are not doing peace talks at all. And so we're trying to hurt Russia as much as possible through this proxy war. And so will Trump try to end it? I guess. I mean, he's a buffoon, and I don't know that it's gonna help much, but any effort is better than no effort. My job is to be honest with you guys, okay? And then to be fair to Trump on the 24-hour nonsense, insanity, every politician doesn't say it that way because that's too goofy, right? But they say, on the first day, I'm gonna do this, on the first day. Like Joe Biden promised like 28 things that he was gonna do on the first day. You know what he did on the first day? I'm president, I'm president. He didn't do anything outside of that, okay? And he didn't even try half the things he said he was gonna do on the first day. So politicians are full of crap, not just Trump.
That is a lie, Cenk. He said, listen, folks, and come on, man, a bunch of times that day.
Listen, folks. No, this is serious. I'm not joking.
Come on, man.
Come on, man. I'm president, and that's no malarkey. Okay, that's what Biden did. All right, Jackson.
Well, Biden also said nothing will fundamentally change, so at least he told the truth with that. But I think one of the biggest appeals that Donald Trump has, and to conservatives, reflects the general conservative approach to politics, is the simplicity. Everything's so simple, and anybody who tries to make this complicated, they're just not smart and strong enough to tackle the issue. That's why I know what to do. I'm just gonna bulldoze over it. So whether it's a claim like doing something in 24 hours, and you're right, if pretty much every president or people in leadership positions will make huge claims, or Ron DeSantis saying, I'm gonna wipe out leftism and wokeism from the dustbins of history. Like, no, you're not gonna eliminate a part of human psychological thought process. Basically, is what left and right wing basically just means. It's a way of approaching life. So that's all it is. But Donald Trump is just, again, he's just hilarious. Let's face it. We're just going to gather everybody around the campfire and pass around the peace pipe, and we'll make the right people happy. And then I could have just dropped bigger bombs on Afghanistan than we were already dropping, but I didn't do that. So, reelect me in 2024. That's basically his whole campaign. But again, it's the simplicity. Everything's so easy and simple, and that's one of the reasons he does so well.
That was some great points and an amazing DeSantis impression, and then the Trump impression was not as good as me or Jenks, but DeSantis.
The DeSantis is on point. Yeah, he's just a robot. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I'm gonna give the last word to Savage Lou. Although I agree with Ben that your DeSantis was excellent. Savage Lou, member on Twitch, wrote in, he'll handle it in 24 hours, probably by letting Russia take everything and more. Well, it could be. Fair point. All right, we got to take a break, guys. When we come back, more devastation, including the fact that we're all dying, and we're dying quicker. We'll tackle it when we come back. All right, back during the social break here. Lots of interesting comments. Let's go to YouTube members first. Little Tuneki Mohamed wrote in, if Trump is good at wars, why did he skip the Vietnam War draft? Damn, shots fired. But not around Trump because he had bone spurs on the right or the left, or maybe both, can't remember. So Aaron, the system says we need a president who can't afford to run for president. Yeah, that's a funny point. We live in a crazy, deeply corrupt country. So anyways, Inner Vortex writes in, toupee fiasco, triple laugh emojis. Okay, that was a good one, Ben.
Yeah, that's perfect. That's one of the best Trump nicknames I've ever heard.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you very much.
And then Ben, you can't see it, but we got a big laugh out of the control room too. So nice job.
Thank you very much.
Meltdown by Kyle, member for a month, says, hi from Australia. Been a TYT viewer for so long and finally been a member. Hey, all right. Kyle, we appreciate it, brother. And by the way, even watching is awesome. Sharing the video, because it doesn't cost anything, about a second. Share the live stream, share our videos, share on social media. But we love that you're a member now and that you're part of us. Modern Relic with a simple point. I still can't believe this idiot is running again. Okay, and fair. Adrian Vixen says, okay, that pink shirt looks good on Ben. Okay, Ben getting a lot of good compliments. Back to our member section, text stand says, US politics has hit peak stupidity when Biden is sure he can't win if it's Trump, and Trump is sure he can win if it's Biden, and the country doesn't want either one, right? Yeah, Biden's like, the only guy I can beat is Trump, but I think it's gonna be Trump. Trump's like, oh, I can definitely beat Biden. I don't know about the other guys. Okay, but both parties are like, we nailed it. Huang Jun runs back in and goes, Trump doesn't like to make jokes about mental decline because he knows people in glass houses sink ships. Probably does think that. Magenta Dragon writes, and the only reason Trump doesn't want to talk about Biden's health is because it opens him up to the same criticism. Here, totally agree. Tall Glass of Shut Up Juice says, I went back to speed watch the first couple of stories I had missed. Jenk's clear and concise rant on corporate and government greed, the devil you know, is exactly why I will always support TYT. That is awfully nice of you. We appreciate it, that's awesome. And yes, that's the corruption that almost no one talks about. Right-wing media and mainstream media have an agreement. We do social issues, we do culture war issues, but hey, circle the wagons when it's helping rich people and corporations. And then I wanted to remind you guys on Tuesday, right after the show here, I'm gonna debate Destiny, so that's gonna be interesting. I'll take on Destiny and win. That's the kind of guy I am. Okay, no, seriously, June 6th, 9 o'clock Eastern, so check that out right here on tyt.com/live or wherever you're watching us, including YouTube. And I want to go to Super Chat Jerry A. Thank you so much for the contribution. We really appreciate it. And Miss Callie asked the same question I have. Jax, please tell us who's in the drawing behind you. 15 seconds.
If it's that one, that was a drawing made by a friend of mine named Erica Hart. It's actually a bunch of dots. That's Muhammad Ali behind me. And then the one up there, I don't know if you can see it, it says Hakuna Matata, but it has the F word in it. TYT, Cenk, Ben, and Jackson with you guys. Ben, more stories.
Before I go into the next story, I just would like to share with you 3 more Trump nicknames I like since Toupee Fiasco was a big hit. I also enjoy Benedict Donald. I enjoy very much Napoleon Bone Spurs, and maybe my favorite, Coward the Duck.
Okay,
I like Coward the Duck. It just sticks with.
I like that you brought Bone Spurs back. So yeah. I'm in favor of all of them. And Benedict Donald on January 6th, that's pretty good. It's a good chance I'm gonna use a lot of those. Nice work, Ben.
Please do.
Okay.
All right, our next story. US life expectancy continues to take a nosedive, and the worst news, it's way worse than we thought. A new report found that the US has had a life expectancy disadvantage since the 50s, and the problem keeps getting worse and worse. The study published Thursday in the American Journal of Public Health also shows more than 50 countries have surpassed the US in life expectancy since the 1930s, and a handful of states may be partly responsible. Surprise, surprise, surprise. Provisional data from 2021 shows US life expectancy has dropped to 76.1 years, according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the lowest it has been since 1996. And it's not just health and food choices and factors we can control. Apparently, it may be heavily influenced by systemic issues, which of course makes total sense. And some states are, like I said, way worse than others, which of course also makes total sense. Northeastern and Western states experienced the fastest growth in life expectancy, Wolf said, while South, Central, and Midwestern states saw the slowest growth. This cluster of states really played an outsized role in producing these poor rankings for the United States. States doing very well, like Hawaii, New York, and other high performers, are ranked among some of the same life expectancy as some of the healthiest countries in the world, according to Dr. Stephen Wolf, Director Emeritus on the Center on Society and Health. The findings support previous research showing how policy decisions impact health outcomes and ultimately life expectancy. And that aspect of it we've known for a long time, which is again why policy decisions matter so very much. Here's an excerpt from a story from late last year to shed a little more light on this issue. While many blame drug overdoses, rising suicide rates, and bad health habits, a new study suggests policymakers may play a bigger role than previously thought. Researchers looked at policies relating to criminal justice, marijuana, the environment, gun safety, health, and welfare, private labor, economic taxes, and tobacco taxes. They merged that information with mortality data spanning from 99 to 2019 and found liberal policies were associated with lower deaths among people aged 25 to 64, but just that tiny demographic. The analysis revealed changing state policies to fully liberal could have saved more than 171,000 lives in 2019 alone, while changing them to fully conservative may have cost over 217,000 lives. If you're curious how they defined what makes a liberal policies were considered liberal if they expand state power for economic regulation and redistribution, protect the rights of marginalized groups, and restrict state power to punish deviant behavior. We can mince words on the phrase deviant behavior being the way they define that, but how could anyone, and I fully agree with protecting the rights of marginalized groups being how you define liberal in a large way, and to be not in that group, to literally have the opinion in this world that we should not protect the rights, but rather endanger them, take them away, restrict them, of people who are marginalized and have less power than you do, is so insane and is what half the country thinks is appropriate to do as a public policy. It's disgusting and shameful, but that's just me. Jink?
No, as it turns out, it's not just you. Researchers are telling you that like you're playing with your life, you vote for Republicans. So at this point, it's a statistical fact. If the whole country was blue states, we'd save about 400,000 lives. That's amazing. That's amazing. Okay, so look, and the facts are not partisan. So I'll show you some where conservatives are right. Okay, so here, in fact, I'll show you one where it's kind of a draw / liberal policy is not working. They found lower drug overdose deaths were linked to states with liberal environmental policies. Oh, that's interesting. So hard to see why that connection exists, but it apparently does. And conservative criminal justice policies. So look, when you look at it from a partisan lens, you want this to be like, hey, our side is good, their side is bad, all of our policies are good, all their policies are bad. But this is science, so it doesn't really work that way. So they looked at it and they said, actually, conservative criminal justice policies lower drug deaths, they do. So if you like the study overall, you gotta accept that as well as the news that you like. Now, where this one was a little surprising, the research showed that there was little to no association between drug deaths basically and opioid regulation and harm mitigation policies. Now those are generally more liberal left-wing policies, and you would think that they would work, harm mitigation and opioid regulation. I'm in favor of those, but apparently they did not have much of an effect on lowering mortality rates due to drug overdose. So I'm giving you that context so that you understand the giant percentage of the data came in saying conservative policies are hurtful and they cost us years of our lives. And so there's more to the list than Ben read you. There's also gun safety and suicide mortality among men. So in other words, if you have more gun control, less people die. You have less gun control, more people die. That one's the most logical one of all time, right? Like, oh, we gave guns to everybody, and turns out some people are mentally not well, and they shot people, and they shot themselves, and so more people died. Of course, but if you listen to Ben's point earlier, you tell right wingers that they're like, oh no way, man. With guns, less people will shoot themselves. That just doesn't make any sense at all, and it's not backed up by any data. And then labor policies and alcohol-induced mortality. So that like if you have. In fact, I want to read you one last thing before I go to Jackson. If you have things that regulate businesses, they say, oh my God, that's gonna hurt citizens. Turns out it's the exact opposite. Higher working age mortality was associated with policies that put more emphasis on helping the private sector to thrive. Oh, well, to thrive so that it'll come and be trickled out on you, right? They're like, nope, wrong. Actually makes your life shorter. And by the way, there's also a very logical reason for that too, because if you take away regulations, there's less safety. There's less safety for the workers. There's less safety for the consumers. For example, Big Pork doesn't want regulations that prevent more feces and hair going in their products. But that stuff gets you sick and kills a certain percentage of people and kills them quicker. It's one of thousands of examples, let alone the one we did earlier in the program where apparently DuPont and some other chemical companies put in super dangerous chemicals into our daily lives, and they knew that they were super dangerous, and they did it anyway. So if you let them, yes, they will harm the citizens to make a buck. These things are kind of obvious. Now they're backed up by the data. Some of the conclusions are not necessarily obvious, but it's interesting either way. And people's feelings will prevent them from acknowledging things that are true, and they'll keep voting for Republicans so they feel better in their shorter lives. Okay, but Jackson, go ahead.
I think this really reflects the impact of culture and how it ripples through and touches everything within society. And our culture, largely in America, is fast success and cheap opulence and entertainment. And so you see how that's touched absolutely everything. Our education system that doesn't prepare people for the modern or future job market, that's broken up from being in a single place for decades to working here and working there at the same time for a couple of years, then jumping. You look at our healthcare system. There's a huge focus on the medicine that we have, but in this country, pharmaceutical companies are able to just jack up the prices because they're trying to make money really fast. And look at the impact that that's had on people's health. You look at even our education. Another thing about our education system, how much it keeps going up. What are people paying for? All the facilities that are on campus. So, this pretty much anything you look at, our infrastructure. Look at what happened at Katrina. How long did New Orleans know that those levees were weak? Nothing happened. Our infrastructure continuously gets a grade of D or D minus. So this ripples through absolutely everything in society to the point that we're really not effectively competing with the rest of the developed world. So we have a long way to go, but so much of this is just the impact of our culture, shipping jobs overseas, manufacturing. It's touched absolutely every area of society. And unsurprisingly, we're living shorter.
Hey, I wanted to say one more quick thing on this. So, the mainstream media, they're really corporate media, and they want to lull you into a false sense of complacency because right now we live under corporate rule, and they love that, and so they become basically the marketing arm of corporate rule. So they don't want you to get concerned. Hence, you always hear in the media, "We're number one. We're number one." Whether it's right-wing media or mainstream media, they're both the two arms of corporate media. But it turns out on life expectancy, we're number 57. That doesn't play as well. Because if you knew that we're number 57 and that we're behind Albania, which is a fact, then you might be upset and want to change things. But if you think we're number one when we're not even close to number one on all these things, like how long we live, that's pretty freaking relevant, whether we're alive or we're dead. Number 57 doesn't play as well. Everybody go back to sleep. We're gonna pretend we're number one.
There's two slogans the Republican Party could implement, Cenk, I think, to solve this problem. They should just own the truth and say everywhere, we're number one, asterisk, after Albania. We're first after Albania. Or just a very honest Republican Party slogan, life. It could be short but sweet.
There you go. Okay, super short on time. I want to do, you know what I'm going to do? Can I do the story we didn't get to in the first hour in this tiny amount of time that we have left? And then I'm going to save everything for the bonus episode. If I could find this thing, I got it. Let's give you one more Trump story. Go.
Hang on. I said it's their question. Leave me alone. All right.
All right, why is the crowd booing Sean Hannity on a Fox News program? Let's find out. Let's give you more from that clip.
I've known you almost 30 years. And people ask me and say to him, why does he have to fight so hard? Why doesn't he pick his fights a little more? Why does he have to call people names? And the only reason I think this is an important question is because I think everyone here tonight is likely voting for you, right? So, however, it's gonna come down to those people that maybe are in the middle a little more. And the argument that they make to me is, if he would just tone it down a hair, stop a little of the name calling. Hang on. I said it's their question. Leave me alone. All right. That it might help you with swing voters in that are needed for you to get over the finish line. It's already hard enough electoral vote-wise for a Republican to win. What do you say to them?
It's a good question. He cost him about 8 points in the 2022 midterms that led to losses in Georgia and in other states that were critical. That's why they didn't hold on to the Senate. Let's see if he had a good answer. Let's find out.
Okay, you ready? And I say this to everybody. I won an election that was unprecedented. We beat somebody that supposedly had it made, and they probably did things in that election too. They were shocked. But I came into office, and from the day I got in, I was under siege by people that have been in Washington for many years, put in there by many different presidents. In most cases, people that were against me, like they spied on my campaign. They did all sorts of things. I was under investigation and under siege, and so were my people. And if I wasn't tough, I wouldn't be here right now, I guarantee you that. If I didn't fight back, I wouldn't be here.
All right, let me shock the world. I agree with him. I think that the insults are overrated, like for how offensive they are. There's all of media says, "Oh, be civil, be civil." Why? Trump wasn't civil and he won. And when he frames it to a Republican audience, like, "Well, I'm gonna fight back for you, and that's why I'm uncivil," they kind of love it. So I say score one for Trump. Ben, what do you think?
I agree. He won, I think, almost entirely because of the insults. That's why I decided to run against the guy, because I thought we needed a comedian to beat a heckler. He doesn't have substance when it comes to policies. He says he can win a war in 24 hours, says he could nuke an entire country in 10 days. He says that he decides alone, he's the only one who can fix things. On the substance of what he says, he's absurd, but people love a fighter. They love someone who's gonna go in there and talk trash to the establishment. He claimed he was gonna drain the swamp. He just filled it with much more swamp water. But what he did do was talk like he was gonna drain the swamp. He talked a lot of trash, and people don't follow the actions of presidents really in office nearly as deeply as they follow the words they say, and never before as closely as Trump when he was on Twitter throughout his whole first term, telling us constantly what he was doing through tons of trash talk. That is how he wins. And so I'm not at all surprised that he's not gonna stop doing it. And I think you're right, he probably shouldn't stop if he has any chance, which sadly he does.
Jackson, what do you think?
Jackson, what do you think? I think you're right, he probably shouldn't stop if he has any chance, which sadly he does.
Jackson, what do you think?
I think you're right, he probably shouldn't stop if he has any chance, which sadly he does.
Just real quick, that Lindsey Graham tweet is truly timeless when he said, if we let Trump come into this party, he's gonna burn it down, and he really, really is. But just gives more opportunities for progressives, so let's carry on.
All right, fairest show in America. Yeah, even giving Trump credit when he deserves it, at least in the political realm, certainly not in policy or sanity. All right, we got an amazing members only post game for you guys, and we're gonna talk about how conservatives say, not enough. We need to attack even conservative companies. Even they're too woke. A new unreal boycott. TYT.com/join to become a member, or hit the join button below on YouTube. We'll see you there in a minute.
Our system is inherently rigged against the will of the people.
They have 50% of the vote, and in a democracy, they should have 50% of the seats.
But if you live in an insanely gerrymandered district, your vote functionally doesn't matter.
We drew the map in a way that even though we get 50% of the vote, we're gonna get 13 out of the 18 seats.
You don't actually have the ability to translate the will of the voters in your area into actual government policy.
They should not be allowed to gerrymander these districts. We should actually have a democracy.
I've been honest with him. Like, yeah, I was upset with you and I shouldn't have done it. But instead I was like, I'm just trying to protect my engagement.